All right, on the streets of Kyoto, right? So, to advertise my new course, Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Photography Entrepreneurship, I want to share with you my top entrepreneurial hacks, secrets, productivity, advice, etc. So, first and foremost, one of the best ways to be more productive as an entrepreneur, artist, or whatever is intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting, it's not starving yourself to death. It just essentially means that deciding what parts of the day not to eat. So for example, I don't eat breakfast and lunch, and usually I'll have my first meal of the day at around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, sometimes even later at 8 o'clock. And then when I eat, I go crazy. Like essentially I gorge. And to me, this is actually a more effective strategy because we all know the infamous food coma. So you're working really hard, and then you have a big lunch of pasta or something, and then you pass out afterwards. And the reason why you pass out afterwards is because you get an insulin response. So foods that have a high glycemic index, aka sugars, food with high carbs, etc., causes your blood sugar to spike, and therefore you just get really tired and you just want to take a nap. So for me, I want to extract the full maximum potential of every day, and then when it's the evening, I just want to rest. So my buddy Nassim Taleb says this is called the barbell idea, or the barbell effect, or something, is that you embrace extremes in life. And I think embracing extremes is a much more fun, interesting way to live your life. So that means during the day, embrace the extreme of fasting, of not eating any foods. But then when you actually do eat, you eat a lot. So the reason this makes sense to me is this. Whenever I eat breakfast or lunch, I get a little sleepy, and then there's lost productivity during the day. Usually during the day, I'll just drink a lot of water, black coffee, and green tea matcha, and then I'll just drink a lot of water. And usually most people can't really be that productive in the evenings. So I'm like, okay, it just kind of makes more sense for me to just eat a lot in the evening then, and then for me intentionally to induce my food coma, and then I just go to sleep. And then I sleep well, and then I wake up the next day and I'm super pumped for the next day. So I would actually recommend for you to experiment with intermittent fasting. So trying to cut out breakfast or lunch from your day and just have an early dinner or whatever. And even things for you to do some Googling around and doing research on is I follow what they call mostly a ketogenic diet, which means I don't eat sugar, carbs, simple carbs. Essentially, I only eat meat, fat, and leafy greens. And it's worked well for me, and obviously it's not going to work well for you, but just give that a go. The second piece of advice I would give is the 80% principle. So a lot of us fall victim to what they call paralysis by analysis. And the basis of paralysis by analysis is that we become paralyzed because we overanalyze whatever we want to do. So let's say you want to start your own photography business, or you want to do some sort of creative project, and you become paralyzed because there's so many options. So let's say you want to do a photography project. You're like, okay, I want to do a photography project, but what camera do I shoot with? What lens do I shoot with? How should I publish it? Should I make a book? Should I make a zine? Should I have an exhibition? And then you start getting caught up all this random minute details that just end up becoming paralyzed and overwhelming. You end up doing nothing. My suggestion is the 80% principle is, obviously work hard on something, but just try to get 80% good enough, and then just hit publish or share it. And the reason why this is such a good strategy in my eyes is that nothing will ever be perfect, nor do you actually desire perfection. Because imagine if one day Apple made a perfect iPhone, there'd be no more reason for innovation to happen. And I think innovation is the lifeblood of life. And so there's nothing that's ever going to be 100% perfect. And not only that, but there's actually no objective way to measure perfectness. So for example, you could look at something and say, okay, that's red. You could look at something and say, that's a square. But you can't look at artwork or a business idea or a video and say that's perfect. So just get it 80% good enough in your own eyes. So how do you know if something's 80% good enough or not? Essentially follow your gut. My suggestion, this is what I do, is I'll rewatch my footage or I'll rewatch my video, and I'll just ask myself, do I like this? And if I don't like it, I just don't do it. But if I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's pretty fun. I like it. It's pretty cool. It's not the best, but it's still pretty good. Then I'll just share it. So it's just kind of this gut reaction. And I found that in my experience, the more you produce, the more confidence you build, And also, which brings me to my third productivity hack, is ask yourself, if this thing that I've created could help empower or uplift or motivate at least one other human being on planet Earth, then it's worth sharing or publishing. So a lot of us, you know, like, we let the haters kind of get to us, and we're thinking that, oh, you know, it's not as good as we want it to be, whatever. But if it's good enough that you could empower one other human being on planet Earth out of like the 7 bajillion people in the world, then it's worth sharing. It's your duty to share, because as you're sharing this and you're empowering them, the person that you empower is going to pay it forward, and they're going to empower somebody else. And there's going to be this amazing domino effect where all of humanity is empowering each other. And like, who doesn't want that, right? So remember that as long as it's helping one other human being, it's essentially worth doing. Also, my suggestion is, in terms of productivity hacks, no, those are my top 3 productivity hacks. Those are pretty good. So the first one, once again, is intermittent fasting throughout the day. Don't eat breakfast or lunch. And if you get hungry, just have a cup of black coffee, or, you know, just have a small high-fat protein snack, whatever. And then the second tip is get it 80% good enough and hit publish. And the third one is, the way of thinking is, if you think it's about, if it could help empower at least one other human being, it's worth sharing and empowering. So if you want to learn more about these productivity hacks, ways that you could change the world and put a dent in the universe, check out my course, Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Photography Entrepreneurship. Link in the description below. Don't miss your chance to empower yourself and empower humanity. Peace out.